but to be in California and to have your television channel as a Black man, what does that say for you?
Oh man, I'm telling you. Yeah, indeed. Indeed.
Props, right?
Yes,
Major
indeed.
props.
And you are watching Influence Media, PSI TV, the Netflix of biz brands.
Black TV. We need to talk about this because the narrative has been controlled for too long. And I think it is time that we speak for ourselves. And if you agree, this show is for you. Welcome. Trudy Veron here of PSI TV, Profitable Social Influence TV. And I am joined today by three distinguished clients and guests and amazing men who also own Black TV. So let me introduce to you Dr. Tyari Kowanda. Dr. Tyari Kowanda from Detroit, Michigan, began his advocacy journey early, organizing community efforts for the Martin Luther King Jr. holiday, influenced by the 12 Together program in high school. He continued his work in South Central Los Angeles, advocating for educational, racial, and social justice. He played a key role in campaigns to free Nelson Mandela and end apartheid. Despite facing homelessness and racism, he graduated from Crenshaw High School and shifted from electronics to education to combat discrimination. Dr. Kowanda holds degrees in liberal arts, history, Native American studies, a master's in education and administration, and a doctorate in educational leadership for social justice. He's a professor of education, high school social science teacher, educational consultant, mentor, policy analyst, and student advocate. As president and CEO of the nonprofit SCORE, he promotes racial equity. His media company, On Watch TV, and podcast, Let's Chew the Gum, focused on inclusivity and diverse voices. Welcome, Dr. Tyari Kowanda.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm so looking forward to being on the show and sharing this space with all of you. Thank you so much.
And I'm going to call him Tyari from now on. We're good friends as well. And
Indeed.
Tyari has On Watch TV, which PSI TV, we built that channel and he has been rocking it. You need to check that channel out. If you have Roku TV or Amazon Fire TV, check out Tyari's On Watch TV. And Tyari, tell us a little bit about what you feature on your channel.
So I like to look at On Watch TV as a mini version of Netflix. So there's a variety of categories and genres, from comedy to drama to documentaries, sports, you name it. And so I'm looking forward to continuing to build in those spaces. So there's a variety for everyone that wants to enjoy television.
Fantastic. And next we have Reverend Robert Carpenter. He's also a TV channel holder. He has RCTV Network, and let me introduce him to you. Reverend Carpenter, his early life and education, he was born in Manhattan, New York. He attended Lee University in Cleveland, Tennessee. He earned a Bachelor of Religious Arts, degree in Pastoral Studies Psychology from Logos Christian College, and graduate school in Jacksonville, Florida, with a minor in biblical studies. He also works in ministry and leadership with over 40 years in the music ministry and more than 30 years as a minister. He served as a senior pastor for more than 15 years and a church ministry consultant as well. And he serves as an executive pastor in Tampa, Florida, and he does reside in Brandon, Florida. So he's right here in my neck of the woods. He's also involved in community work, and he served on numerous boards, task forces, and community-based organizations. He also worked as a conference facilitator and technical consultant for the National Center for Faith-Based Initiative during the President George W. Bush administration. As far as media presence, he's a co-host of The Real Talk with RN Diva and Pastor Robert's podcast. He's known for practical and a comical approach to the Bible and transforming ministry. He's a father of 5 and grandfather of 3. And again, Robert has RCTV Network. Robert, tell us a little bit about your channel.
Well, the RCTV Network has a mix of motivational moments on there for myself, also some early interviews for my podcast, and then also some sermon excerpts as well. our latest edition has been our podcast that we've been doing, the Real Talk with the RN Diva. She's a registered nurse. And so we deal with health issues, spiritual issues, and current events. So it gets a mixture of the topics and everything on there. So it's really fun. Kind of has often a difference from just the preaching and the motivation and everything. So we enjoy that a lot.
I have to say that Pastor Carpenter has been taking on the church. He has been showing out all those things that should not be happening in the church. He's a strong advocate for calling out those who are not gospel. So you better watch out you don't get in his crosshairs if you're not.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
All right, and then we have David Moore. He has Cut Lifestyle TV, and David is a master certified trainer with more than 17 years experience in the health and wellness industry. He's a former natural bodybuilding champion, a master herbalist, and certified nutrition specialist. He specializes in weight loss, bodybuilding, and holistic health, and form correction. A lot of you guys are doing that workout. You think you're doing it right, you're not having proper form. And also as a former employee and brand ambassador for Vitamin Shop and the creator of the Cut Lifestyle Fitness app. Welcome, David.
Thank you. Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about the Cut Lifestyle Network TV channel.
So the main focus is Cut Lifestyle is about self-discipline, self-care, self-love. But of course, there's many different aspects from health, training, laughter, emotional attachment. It's teaching people to heal themselves while learning the different elements that we have at our fingertips. So you see as many different aspects as possible, but it's all about bettering yourself as opposed to outward experiences.
All right. Okay, gentlemen. So we're here to talk about minority-owned TV, particularly Black-owned TV, and why this might be important. I think it's important. Do you guys think it's important? Do you think this is a topic worthy of discussion?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I think this conversation is very important. I think so. I think so because it is my opinion from my observation that regular TV, which has been controlled, the narrative's been controlled for years, for decades. I've seen racial insensitivity. Minorities have been negatively portrayed. When they are portrayed, they're in subservient roles. They're usually the villains and not the heroes. There's a lot of stereotype going on. And that's one of the reasons why I've always felt like this is so important. So I want to share some stats with you from Pew Research Center. It found that 63%, they did a survey, and it says most Black Americans say news about Black people is more negative than news about other groups. In fact, 63% of them say that. Would you agree that that sounds about right in terms of your experience and your social peers? Would you say that that's something that you've seen?
I can believe that. I don't watch a lot of news, but intentionally. But yeah, but it is a lot of negative stereotypes usually.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 63 or even higher. I mean, throughout my lifetime, that's been pretty much the same. That's been consistent in terms of the depictions of African Americans or Black people in general on TV being framed in a negative light. And I think that's why a lot of individuals outside of our community may view Black communities and Black cultures in that way, because they're consuming false media for the most part, or overly negative media, right? There's an imbalance in what's being portrayed.
And David, you might be the youngest of the three of us on here, I'm assuming. How old are you, David? Just to give us some perspective.
I'll be 42 in September.
For sure. But that's just to just say that we've had some experience with TV as it has existed over time. So when we're saying this, we're not saying this off 5 minutes of experience. We're talking about decades of watching TV experience. So let me just share with you some more stats that I researched. In the early 19th to early 20th century, they had representation like the minstrel show, which featured white actors in blackface portraying exaggerated and derogatory stereotypes of Black people. And then in the 1915, we had the birth of a nation, and Black men were depicted as dangerous and predatory. And then in the 1920s through the 1950s, we did start to see some leading roles like Black actors, but they were reinforcing the negative stereotype. Then we get into the 1960s through the 1980s. This is the early civil rights era. And the narrative begins to change, especially with an actor known as Sidney Poitier. And he really made a breakthrough through racial barriers. But then we had something called Black exploitation films, which provided Black actors with leading roles, but still presented themes of, and this time we start to see themes of empowerment and resistance coming up. And then we get into the 1990s to the early 2010s, and then we start to see increased representation, but the negative stereotype persisted, reinforcing a very narrow perception of what is considered Black life. Then we get into the more modern era, and then we get shows like Wakanda Forever. And so it's starting to improve. And then we start to see Black-owned media like the OWN Oprah Winfrey Network and Revolt TV by Sean Combs, and of course Tyler Perry Studios. But this is very, very recent, in very recent history. So I would like the goal of this episode to be about reclaiming the narrative. We have to reclaim the narrative. At least that's just my opinion. So I do have some questions for you guys. We had a fan of PSI TV saying, "Oh my gosh, like Tyler Perry, PSI TV is part of the long needed creation of a Black Hollywood." And PSI TV doesn't necessarily have a strong message of Black TV, but what we are doing is giving the opportunity, like the three of you now have television channels of your own, and that's what excites us as a brand, to be able to provide this kind of thing. So I have a couple questions for you. Let's start with David on this one. David, and this is a question for all of you, but I'm going to start with David on this one.
Sure.
David Moore of Cut Lifestyle TV. What made you want to have a TV channel?
Number one, I'm in Chicago, and as we can see what the media does to Chicago is demonized completely. And the problem is with Chicago, it's so large, but yet this entire country knows about minute issues within our city, and we get questioned about it. We don't, as a country, understand how much good comes out of Chicago. Not only just the city itself, but like we said, people of color. We account for about 12% of the population, yet I would say we're up in 80% about what the culture is. So if the eyes are on Chicago, right, as to what's happening, it makes sense to control the narrative, not only for the city, but also for people of color. So that was my main focus with creating some sort of media, good media, because all we hear is bad media. And there's so many beautiful parts to the city and to people of color within the city.
Initially, it wasn't something that I had aspirations for or anything that I pursued. But during the pandemic, when I started a program called Instagrad 2020, which was giving opportunities and resources to all the folks that weren't going to graduate from kindergarten to college, a program where we just celebrated them all year with mock graduations and gifts, et cetera, et cetera. A question was posed to me or a proposition was posed to me about making that into a documentary. And from that, the idea of a television channel was put on the table. And I thought, wow, what would I do with the television channel? It was something that I hadn't thought of. And as you know, I acquired the television channel, but didn't do anything with it for an entire year. I was just kind of contemplating the responsibility of what it would mean to have a media outlet. Because as an educator, I'm always conscientious of the message I put out to the students that I have in my room, that captive audience. And I thought, a television channel was a huge responsibility because we have to be cognizant of, again, what we put out. And so after much thinking, I thought, you know what, I would like to pursue this because it provides an opportunity to create a more accurate narrative of individuals, to give individuals, and not just Black individuals, but individuals, period, an opportunity to showcase their talents, their content, their skills on television, folks that were maybe dissatisfied or disaffected by Hollywood or Hollywood types, folks that thought they couldn't afford to be on television. So I took it as that opportunity to provide opportunities and to create more realistic narratives of individuals in society.
Now, Reverend Carpenter, when you started out your channel, you were doing a lot of preaching at a church, and that your channel kind of took a shift. So tell us a little bit about why you wanted to have the TV channel, and what is that all about for you now?
Yeah, it started out just getting our preaching ministry out there and all that. But there was a shift I noticed in studying kind of what you're doing. There was the mainstream media has already died. They just hadn't got the memo, okay? And people aren't getting their information from ABC, NBC, and CBS and all like that. The younger generations now are getting it from social media, TikTok, X, and podcasts. And so since that space is opening up, I decided to kind of shift towards that. So a lot of with our podcast is really a lot of it's geared because I'm African American. My cousin, who's my co-host, is African American. So it's geared towards normally stories that would interest Blacks and African Americans, and some stories that you wouldn't get in a positive light if you happen to still watch some of the networks and cable news. So also, since podcasting is opening up, that's where everybody's going. Even the presidential candidates now all try to get on the podcast. And so I think if having some out there that is geared towards a certain audience, like I said, some of what we do is comedy, current events, but she deals with a lot of health issues. But it's geared towards a specific audience. Anyone can watch it, but it's really geared to it because that's what we need. So when people are searching, they can see that and say, okay, you know what, I like this style, and I'm getting some information that is useful to me, as opposed to just watching something on TV or leaving the TV on and you're hearing something and just, you veg out on it. So that's the reason why we shifted to that space.
So one of the things that you may observe as you hear, we may use words like podcast, because a lot of this is we're repurposing the content on other platforms as well. And some TV channels will actually be podcasts with video. So television is just another platform for the content, and a very important one, because social media is free. And just like TikTok, one of the things I found for myself that had me reluctant to go to social media when I started with television was I didn't find brand alignment there. When YouTube started, it was very much like how TikTok is today. A lot of young kids dancing, pranksters, that kind of thing. And it didn't feel like brand alignment for me. And I didn't feel like that was where I wanted to be. I've repented and realized the value in having the content on multiple platforms. What television does is it gives a more of a oomph, a more credible authority to the very same content, simply because it's on the television platform. So one of the things that I do want you guys to come away with as you watch this episode today is that it's not just a push for controlling the narrative on TV. It's a push for controlling the narrative, period. TV is just a very powerful and credible platform, and a platform that has been in the past blocked for the average person, especially a minority of color. So now that the opportunity has opened up and we now have an opportunity to be on TV, not just on video or social media, we should be there. Your presence should be seen and felt and not be hidden in the background as it has been all this time. The opportunity is there for you to take your space. Come and claim it. Come and claim it. Okay. All right. Next question, gentlemen. A lot of Black artists, superstars, a lot of Black superstars in general, whether they be artists or athletes, they've been role models to generations behind them. In fact, we know about a lot of them because of TV, by the way. But do you think owning a TV media platform by way of a TV channel can also be inspiring? And if so, how are you planning to be inspiring to the upcoming generation? Tyari, Dr. Tyari, would you start?
Okay. Yeah. No, I think it's very inspiring and can be inspiring to the up and coming generation. We have so many young creatives. Pretty much anybody now can create content from the palm of their hand. And as you said earlier, though, the idea of television gives a little bit more, I would say a lot more credibility to the content that's being pushed, because everybody can do YouTube and everybody can do TikTok, et cetera. But when you have the ability to say, I have a television channel or my content is on TV, that's credible because of the space we're in, because of the longevity of the television as a media and platform and all that entails, right? What I like to do is with the younger generation, especially as I'm involved with high school students and even college students, is provide those opportunities because they have skill sets, whether they are have the propensity to be a director, a producer, a writer, or a gaffer, or whatnot. They find a lot of pathways into that field, and it helps them also to develop and find their voice. So I use On Watch TV in that regard also to provide those opportunities for folks that never thought they could be in television or in that that genre or that career pathway, to be able to have access to those folks that are making content for television every day. And I've seen it inspire many. There's quite a few young students I've worked with that have gone on to start their journey into film school because they've seen what I've done and they want to follow a similar path.
Fantastic. What about you, Robert?
I think it's a great thing because it allows each individual to cultivate their creativity, and and that being on TV raises the level, kind of raises your stock, so to speak. But also it sets them up, because what I've noticed is all it takes is one something, one podcast or one episode or whatever. If you have the right guest or it gets in the right hands or whatever, goes viral, whatever the case, then boom. I mean, I've seen people that started on TV, started their thing, whatever it was. It's something that I bet look like what are they doing? And now they're making 7 figures. And that's no joke. It's like, wow, they just stuck with it and they built it and kept with it. And so I get it's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of entrepreneurs that it opens the door for them to be able to just grow. And I've seen several that I know personally, like, whoa. So I think it's an excellent opportunity. Because since everything's opened up, you never know. A lot of times people thought you had to be a certain cookie cutter way if you want to be on TV. You had to dress a certain way, you had to talk a certain way, look a certain way. That's going out the window now. You just be you and work it, and then the sky's the limit. And there's a lot of opportunity.
David, there's a lot of young people coming up behind you. You're in natural bodybuilding and all of that. How will you use TV to inspire those you serve, the next generation?
So with the youth, like that's my closest attachment, right? I look like them, I hang out with them. They want to be heard and seen, right? Everybody wants to be a content creator. Everybody wants to go viral. So what happens is TV, let's be honest, the biggest stars that we know them because of TV. Whether they're a financial entrepreneur, real estate mogul, what have you, you didn't come across that person until you've seen them on a large, significant screen. So controlling the most important screen in a person's household, because regardless of how many phones you have, you still go home and watch TV at night. You allow the youth to express themselves and they get that ego stroke, regardless of, how they may feel in life, it boosts their self-esteem, man. So when you present to them an opportunity saying, hey, not only do I look like you, but you can do this too. We have a young adult artist out of Oakland. His name is LaRussell, who's like 28, 29 years old. He's independent and he's changing the record industry for what it is. And he has, the Busta Rhymes and LL Cool J's, they're reaching out to him because he's controlled his own narrative, controlled his own streaming, distribution, and now they're doing business with him. So you create that lane for these children, these youth, to show them, hey man, your content is just as valuable as Martin, as Fresh Prince. It matters. And you give them the proper place to display it. And now not only do they feel valuable, but they go out and provide value to their community.
I love it. And you made some good points, David. Television is the largest screen that people watch, outside of the movies. And it is a congregation spot, like if it's Olympics or when COVID news was out, or the, elections or whatever. And a lot of people just come through the door, drop the keys, turn on the television for background noise. Some people can't go to sleep without television on. They feel lonely. They just want to have background noise. So it's consumed differently. And you're right. The feeling seen, feeling heard. And also, it also, when they see you guys, some people who look like them, people who look like me, no matter what people think, I am a woman of color, okay? Maybe just a lighter shade, but the point is that there's another, they don't have to be just a musician or an athlete. There are other routes. And then they just, to see that people are doing things that seemed impossible before, it gives them other people to inspire them that they can have other paths as well. So that's fantastic, guys. I love the answers that I'm getting so far.
One thing is ownership as well.
Own the platform, the distribution platform. Absolutely. I love that point that David made too, the owning that distribution and controlling that narrative for sure. So how do you guys, I'll open this up to the floor. How do you see Black-owned shows, Black-owned TV, Black-owned controlling of the narrative? Let's just whatever platform that we have to own that story. How do you see it evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
It's interesting that that question follows. You did a brief history of minstrel shows, to the Birth of a Nation, to the performance that came after. It's been a pendulum of the types of content. And I've been around long enough to experience and witness the pendulum is in terms of when folks were tired of the mammy roles and the butler roles and the shuffle and jiving type roles that we saw in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and up until the 60s, I would say, maybe even then, there was a push for change. They wanted, the Black superhero types, the more powerful, positive. You had the Sidney Poitiers, right? And as you said, we went to the Blaxploitation. These were these larger than life Black action figures. And even in those films, as much as they seem heroic, a lot of those were derogatory, right? And hence the phrase Blaxploitation, because you had pimps and prostitutes and drug dealers who were oftentimes the heroes. And sometimes you had other folks too, but that was always interlaced. And people began to push back against that, to say, wait a minute, we're more than that. And you got to the 80s with the Denzels and the Howard Rollins Jr.'s and folks like that, where they were portrayed in more positive roles, whether it's lawyers, doctors, et cetera, presidents, politicians, et cetera. And for me, I've seen since the late 80s where the pendulum started to swing back to the more negative stereotypes. We got a lot of the movies that were about life in the inner city, which is true. Art depicts life, but there was an overemphasis on the drug dealing and the sex and the prostitutions and all of the vices in society. And we got to the 2000s where we got the reality shows. And now in the reality shows, I don't know how many times I turn on and there's somebody fighting and arguing and cussing and just drama, 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 and they're best friends. We're going to go out and have a good time, and you already know it's going to end in turmoil, right? And so that gets tiring. And I think the pendulum is pushing slowly away from that to say, hey, you know what? We're more than that. What type of role models are we having for our young people? Right? I have students in high school, and I swear they are reenacting some of these negative situations in reality shows on a daily basis, right? But now, over the next 5 to 10 years, I see as folks like us are in the mix and others to push more of these positive narratives again. It's like we're re-raising the generations, each generation, to say, hey, wait a minute, that's not all we are. Let's show some other depictions. Here's some more history. Here's some other things we've accomplished, some other things that we do. Here's some other ways to act. And so, it's my hope and my my projection that in the next 5 or 10 years, we're going to see more positive images of African Americans in film and media.
I want to just, before the others come on, I want to just to David's point, when he talked about Chicago and that, what people think or know about Chicago is based on just a tiny fraction of what Chicago is and the reality of Chicago. But that's the same thing that's happening here. I mean, the very tiny narrative that is being pushed. Do you understand? And I hope you accept the challenge that this is an amazing opportunity to depict something completely different. Because when that tiny narrative is pushed, and when you have your life is a pinhole view, and when you grow up in the hood and and that is what you see, that's one of the benefits I think that came out of like magnet schools and all that, because children are able to see a different life, somebody with a different experience. And regardless of any negative that may be about that, it's like we need to see different opportunities in different ways. So I think this is a fantastic thing. So guys, chime in. Tell me, David and Robert, let me hear you.
Well, go ahead.
No, I'm the kid.
I think that there's ever since about 2020, when we had the kind of the rise there of the BLM movement and everything, you saw some of the commercials and different things trying to be more integrative racially. So I think there is a kind of a window of opportunity next maybe 5, maybe 10 years where you can get in and get strong, and really you're going to have some favor with the viewing audience and everything. Hopefully it'll be longer than 5 or 10 years, but it's very difficult because it's like, for instance, you named some of the like Revolt TV and some of the others, but then you have Black Star Network, Roland Martin, he has his, but then there was another one, Black Network, that just shut down. Martin Lamont Hill was on it. They just sent everybody home about a month ago. I'm trying to think of the name of it. I was thinking with the Root or something like that. It was a Black-owned. So there's still a lot of some of them that are here one day, go tomorrow. Then you also have somebody like Byron Allen, who's African-American, but he's going after the major networks. Now, I don't know. I haven't seen yet. He owns the Weather Channel and some of the Discovery Channel, something like that. But I haven't seen if that's going to be open a door for African Americans per se, because he's kind of doing the whole thing. So there is opportunity there and a window there to kind of get in, get going, because you don't know what the next shift is going to be after that. So I think now's the perfect time to kind of get in, get established ahead of time. So you're already there. When the shift happens, you're already there. You're already established and you already have everything. You have your marketplace.
David?
I think what separates the next 5, 10 years is right now you have the focus is on TikTok, right? The government is trying to control it and manipulate it. And what happens is TikTok is a lot more freedom. It's a lot more open algorithm. It's a lot more content that flows, some good, some bad. Now, what that indicates, if you look at social media as a whole, people have been gravitating towards this space, meaning TikTok, because they're tired of the old way, right? Where we kind of have a social media fatigue. So people want something differently to look at, which means that's opportunity. So like we were talking about with African American shows, the reality shows, it's violent, violent, violent. It's degradation. It's people are turning and they're more receptive. So now, if you have a nation, a group, a culture that's more receptive to different ideologies, which that's the real agenda with banning TikTok, why not go into TV? Because again, this is the centerpiece of the household. So if you can get on the gathering piece for every household, regardless of what it is, and present something to them that they could take with them, again, regardless of what social media they use, it's just a dopamine rush. That's all swiping is. It's a dopamine rush. But when you got a 75-inch, 85-inch screen, what do you think people talk more about? A short video they seen the last 2 minutes, or a series that goes on? You've heard more about Black Box. You've heard more about Leave the World Behind. You've heard more about these massive 2-hour movies, shows that floats the water cooler. So if you can create a specific narrative agenda, Byron Allen is the boss of this thing. Now you have ears and eyes that are receptive. So I absolutely think now is the perfect time in the next 5 to 10 years to move into TV for anyone, let alone a person of color.
Well, according to the research from advertising.
While you're finding that, I want to jump in with something else that you
Yeah.
said. You talked about credibility, being the TV adding credibility. Another part of that, being able to capture an audience, is for that audience to be able to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Credibility, they trust your content. And so I think that mainstream media has lost the confidence of people. So now, as you said, either social media fatigue and all that. So if people see you're on TV, you got credibility, and they can trust whatever your content is, they'll be loyal to you for a long time.
Well, I want to say that there are people who, if you don't look like them, they're not going to trust anything coming out your mouth. And so if people who look like them aren't saying what needs to be said, then they're probably not hearing anything at all. So sometimes y'all need to speak up. And when it comes to the Internet Advertising Revenue Report, this was just put out. OTT, over the top television, which is what Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV is expected to be the fastest growing media channel in 2024. Social media will still grow, but not as fast or at the percentage rate of growth of this TV, because TV as we know it, like cable TV, that is going the way of the dinosaur. But ever since the internet merged with television, and we have the television platforms we have now, like Roku, Amazon Fire, the cable TV shows are coming over to this platform. This platform has taken over. People never before had the ability to binge watch content like they do now, simply because of on-demand television. It's making it possible. So this platform is not only hot in terms of room to grow, but even the time that we're in, the era that we're in, the receptivity to being open to inclusivity and diversity and all that, it's never been such an amazing time. And if we don't jump on it right now and take full advantage of it, then we deserve to be left behind. I really think we need to step up our game, and we need to come with the excellence, and we need to take over, because like you said, they have the fatigue and they no longer trust what has been. So let's give them something new, right? So gentlemen, thank you very, very much. Is there anything else you'd like to say with regards to really the call to action is to reclaim the narrative, and that maybe TV should be a platform for them to consider as they whether it is skits, music, any kind of creativity, educational content? Speak to that as we close out.
I would think that, for me, anytime that I see a void or a problem, as opposed to complaining about it, I'm action oriented. And I think for young folks that have content, or for anyone, young, 8 to 80, it doesn't matter. If you have content, or you have ideas for content, or you're seeing narratives, twisted narratives, and you know that there's a better way and a right way to tell that story. I want to encourage folks to speak up and tell those stories, and to understand, like one of the gentlemen said earlier, that your content is just as important. I think it was you, David, just as important as that of Martin and the Fresh Prince. You have a voice, have your say. I would say that, have your say. And if you are in a particular place where you are looking for an outlet to voice your opinions or what have you, and you don't have a channel, reach out to individuals like us, because I tell folks on Watch TV all the time, I get the question, well, what type of content or do you have? And I'll say, well, there's really just a few parameters. So one, there's not going to be anything what I say ratchet, nothing ratchet on Watch TV. You're not going to see twerking and this type of stuff. You like that, that's fine, but that's so many places you can view it, but just not here, right? We're changing the narrative. You're not going to see people fighting. There's not going to be the hip hop wives of this fight and that fight, and you're not going to see that. You're not going to see people demeaning other cultures to elevate their own culture. So for individuals that have content, want to have things put out, you don't have the ability, reach out to folks like us, because we want to assist in changing that narrative and providing positive content for the consumer.
I think that everyone needs to realize that there's an audience out there for whatever you have to offer. And so don't think like what you have is not as good as anybody else. There's somebody out there, there's an audience out there that is looking for what you have to offer. Learn your gift, learn your craft, perfect it. But go ahead, get out there, and you'll be surprised at the feedback that you'll be receiving. And the good thing about TV too is also it stays on the platform. So you're not limited by time. After a week it's there, it's going to stay out there. So your content is going to remain out there. You just keep building, and you'll be surprised how big you'll have your show will be, your network will be, your TV will be.
I'm going to wrap up with these two things. The first one is, as the push is towards creating more content, people want to go viral, what have you. When you create that content, you are no longer the owner of it or in control of it. You are at the mercy of whatever system you're bringing it to, Instagram, TikTok, what have you. And you will lose based upon your positioning against someone else. If you post at 7 o'clock, I guarantee you your post won't show up because all the primetime people post at 7. And you may have put hours behind editing something that was truly prolific and educational, and it gets swallowed. Like Robert just said, the content is forever. It exists. People that follow you can follow you. They don't have to go through weed work and filtering. It's there, it exists. The last point I want to make, which is probably the biggest point, the NBA just moved into streaming. So if the top tier is moving their services from typical broadcast TV, NBC, ABC, ES are moving over to streaming services and doing multi-billion-dollar deals, that's your indicator of where you need to be going. So that's the focus of moving towards your own network, your own channel, your own ownership, on top of the top tier people. And then you have Hollywood moving to streaming services. So everyone is moving to channels and networks. Why shouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Well put.
Gentlemen, I have to say thank you very much. First of all, for trusting PSI TV to build your channels out for you, and for doing the excellent work that you do, and really for us to have this very important conversation today. And I really hope it fires up somebody out there to really bring their craft to the world and let their voice be heard. And as Robert said, they shouldn't hide it. There is an audience for them. And we'd love to have you on television, but the first conversation that we want to really strike home today is to control that narrative. Control that narrative. Don't let someone tell your story for you. And don't let them tell it in the way that they want to tell it. You need to tell your own story and tell it the way you want it to be told. And that means you need to control your narrative. A great place to put that storytelling or your craft or your educational content is television, because television has 4 decades been a barrier for us. We've not had the chance in the past. And when we had the chance, it was just nothing but negative. But now the door is open and you should come claim your spot. It's a powerful, credible, authoritative platform, and you have the opportunity to be here. And it does not cost as much as you think, because we're not going to put the price on here just because I want this content to be evergreen, not because I don't want you to know it. It's very easy to find the prices for us, and it's very affordable. Guys, would you say it's terrible, or was it affordable to work with me? I can't speak for the general industry, but with me.
Trudy is awesome. Trudy
Absolutely,
is awesome.
she is definitely something that you can do.
We all have different types of content that we're putting out. So we happily refer to each other too. But the real thing I want you to walk away with is control your narrative. Tell that story, tell the story, control the narrative, and consider TV as a platform to share it on. Trudy Beerman here. I am super simple to find. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with me today. And I look forward to connecting with you.